Hi, this is David again. In this video I wanted to do on the plight of females in the Mormon Church. And again, you have to look at their history and their background, not what they say. Here's what they say: womanhood and childbearing is the most sacred, important part of our religion, and that God has chosen women to bear children. That's the thing that they say, that a woman's place is in the home. That's what they say. Now that they need more tithing money, they've kind of moved away from that in the last 8 or 10 years, that the woman's place may not be in the home as much as it used to be. The other kinds of lies that the Mormon Church perpetuates against women is, one is polygamy. And we can talk about that for a second, because I think that is a cruel and inhumane way of dealing with females. Joseph Smith started the process of how the Mormon Church views women. He married 2 14-year-olds, and Fanny Auger got kicked out of his house by Emma because Emma found Joseph in bed with her. And I don't remember, I think she was 16. And Joseph married, about a third of his wives were under 18, and then the other 2/3 were generally married women. So he's basically committing adultery and treating those women like objects. And of course, the results of those kinds of behaviors by Joseph Smith ended up with pregnancies. And certainly that was a difficult thing for the women, and they had to have abortions. Now, if you have an abortion in 1840, that's pretty coat hanger type stuff. There weren't really medical facilities, and there weren't pills, and there weren't penicillin and skilled doctors. There were just basically crude, rude abortions that certainly endangered the woman's life. Joseph made Emma clean up the spittoons in the mansion house. That was her job. Now everyone gets to clean the toilets in the Mormon Church now, since they fired the janitorial crew. But Joseph basically treated women very, very poorly. And the church, historically, again, you look into the Bible, how many women are mentioned, how many women are important enough to say something and have it recorded? Not very many. And Joseph kept that tradition of discrimination against women very much alive in the Mormon Church. And when you put a woman, and I can't speak as a woman, obviously, I can only use my education and my background, but to put a woman into a polygamous relationship certainly puts her in competition. Why is that fair? That she has to compete, have her hair done and look beautiful and keep a little skinny body to compete with the 18-year-olds that are coming in as wives. That doesn't seem like something that's fair. Even basically fair. When you think about it, that's not fair. And when you subject that group of women in a polygamous situation to having to basically babysit all of the other women's children, that's not fair. She should be able to focus on her own offspring, and she's not. She's part of a group. Everything is done in a group, and in the polygamous situation, I've investigated a little bit. I've been down to Bluffdale, Utah, and I've talked to some of the polygamists. In fact, I even took some of their lessons down there. And I've been in a couple of sacrament meetings and talked to some of the kids and whatever. So I have some knowledge, not vast, not basic, beyond just the little bit that I've told you. And I have found that when you make women compete for their position, they also have to share the inheritance now, don't they? So one woman whose husband dies, she gets 100% of everything in a monogamous relationship. But in a polygamous relationship, Brigham Young's wives got 1/57th of his wealth. Does that seem fair? If the woman dies, the man gets 100% of her estate, but if he dies, she gets 1/57th? Just common sense here shows the terrible discrimination that women have borne gracefully throughout the life of the Mormon doctrine and history. So I started with Joseph Smith, and the tar and feathering of Joseph Smith, I've mentioned in one other video. A doctor was invited along to castrate Joseph Smith. That there were so many people in the community thought that he was screwing everything that moved, and every woman was at risk that they were going to castrate him. In the confusion that went on, that didn't happen, evidently. So, historically, from Joseph Smith right to Brigham Young, women have had it tough when they came across the plains and the prairies. The women were the basic ones that had to nurture and care for the children, and try to take care of 3 little kids in the back of a covered wagon, or have them walking in the prairie in a foot of snow. They were under tremendous stress and strains. And after the Joseph Smith obnoxious era of training the Mormon Church of how they're going to train women, then comes along Brigham Young. Now this is Brigham Young's personality. I'm not going to say Hitler, because that's an exaggeration, but it gives you an idea of kind of where I'm going. I mean, this guy was a tyrant. There's no doubt about it. He was a tyrant. And he was a colonizer, he was a glazer, he was the governor, he was the prophet of the Mormon Church, and let's take a look at the way he treated women. First of all, I think he was married to 57 of them. And second of all, I've been in the Beehive House. I've seen how he set the bedrooms up for the girls, women and wives, and he just rotated from bedroom to bedroom. So I don't know, maybe they had a schedule, maybe they knew on the 5th of the month or odd days he's coming here. How would you feel if you're a woman and you have a certain amount of dignity and a certain amount of pride, but your husband is screwing everybody else in the house except 1 or 2 nights a month, and he comes and sees you? And then he's going to say, well, gee, you're my favorite, you're the one that I really love. And he says that to all the girls. That's insane. I'm surprised the women haven't risen up in some kind of a revolution in the Mormon Church. So he had the Beehive House, but that wasn't enough. He had more wives than could fill the Beehive House. So now you go over to the Lion House, and there the women had plenty of places to cook for him and take care of his kids. And then his favorite wife, gee, I didn't think they were supposed to have favorites, but his favorite wife, he built a mansion across the corner where ZCMI used to be located, kitty corner to the Beehive House, and all of the other girls and women had to look at her house, his favorite wife. Now, how does that make you feel? If that doesn't make you feel like shit, I don't know what would. No man in his right mind would stand for that. But these sweet pioneer women, I don't know what their motivation was, but they stood for it. And I see from most of the journals and history that they were gracious about it, and that's damn lucky that they weren't Lorena Babbitt and had other kinds of feelings of what their husbands were doing. Well, historically, the women have never in the Mormon Church been allowed to hold any responsible position. They have their own female organization called the Relief Society, and years ago it was to help poor people and to go to hospitals and try to be some type of a aid to people in the community that needed it. And that was the way for the men to keep the women away from any kind of power structure. The Relief Society has no power. None. It's a service arm of the Mormon Church. A woman is not allowed to hold the priesthood. She basically originally had no voting rights, sustaining rights in the Mormon Church, but that changed with Anthony and her movement. But the power in the Mormon Church is for men. And men tell women what to do. And there is the patriarchal authority. That means the father is the God. Whatever the father says in the house, that's the way the world turns. They use so many funny phrases and secret phrases that mean things to Mormons, but they mean other things to normal people. They call it the patriarchal order. Well, that's nothing more than a fancy little term that means men are in charge and women are dog shit. That's what it means. That's exactly what it means. And for women, they have to be strapped with the children, and that gives them a disadvantage because many times they can't work, they can't gather an estate or income, and that gives the man much more power to, this is the way it's going to be done, and she's scared because if he leaves her, she's destitute. And she's always looking out for her children, so the man gathers more and more power in those ways. And there is no equality in a Mormon marriage. It does not exist, and they'll tell you, yes, it does. The man is the final word in the family. He can consult with his wife if he wants. If he doesn't want, now see, they don't tell you this. If he doesn't want to consult with her, then he doesn't have to. So women are pretty much surrogate kind of servants and slaves to the Mormon men. And polygamy was even a more atrocious social system that women had to endure in the Mormon church. Now the other thing is that men could pretty much dress the way they wanted to. Brigham Young and Joseph Smith and the rest of the men, oh, but not the women. See, the women had to wear the long skirts and the hats and cover their bodies up, kind of like the Muslim women, showing that they're always sexual objects and reminding them that they're sexual objects. So again, freedom to dress and freedom to move and to be in charge of the family or to take any responsibility. It didn't exist then, and it doesn't exist now. I think the other parts of being a woman in the Mormon church is that you're expected to be absolutely, what they will say, chaste. Chaste means you've never had sex. That's what the Mormon church says about their women. That if you have had sex before you're married, you're a licked cupcake. And no one wants a licked cupcake. And that you are a bad girl, and that you're trash, and that you're a whore, and that you have presented yourself in a sexual manner that you should have never done. Well, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone, women and men, make all kinds of sexual mistakes. But you do in the Mormon church and you're a woman, you better watch out, because there's no one really that's going to want to marry you, and you are going to have to go to non-members, or you're going to have to go to other states and lie the rest of your life. So, one of the things that is important in this process is that women bear the children. Now, in the Mormon religion, it is believed that the children that you have are the ones that are the beginning of the eternal God that you're going to become, and the eternal princess or queen that she's going to become. So the whole Mormon doctrine is that when we all get to heaven, the men get to screw everybody, and there's millions and millions of wives and millions of children. Guess what the wives get to do? Bear children. Bear children. That's their only job. Gee, that doesn't sound like a heaven if I was a woman that I'd want to go to. I don't think I'd want to be there. And I think that a free-thinking woman would go, wait a minute. I had 3 or 4 kids down here, and look at the hassle I had with them. And look what they did to my body, and I'm just going to have children for eternity? Yep. Yep. Man, that's a doctrine in a church for men now, ain't it? Ain't it? For a woman, you got to shake your head and go, why would a woman want to be married in the Mormon church with that kind of a doctrine? Well, a lot of those women come from LDS families that are sheltered, that are trained in the cult, and they believe that that's their role, is to have children, and take care of children, and the men get to sit around and eat and water ski and have fun and zip line, and then come home and choose what bedroom he's going to go into and decide who he's going to have sex with and how often. Well, the Mormon church is one of the leading discriminatory elements left in the world. Perhaps not quite as crude and rude as Muslim, but they're progressing, and the Mormon Church has been stagnant since its inception. So perhaps the Muslim women will have more freedom and more ability in the next 20 or 30 years than even a Mormon girl will have. And so you'll find very, very quickly that if you're LDS and you're a female, you're going to be discriminated against, and you are definitely a second-class citizen. I think it's a disgrace. I've always thought it was a disgrace. My experience has been that women in political office and in leadership offices usually is better than a man. They're more kind, they're more empathetic, they're more thoughtful, they're not as rash, and they're not as violent as men. And as long as men keep them pushed to the back and to the sides, we're going to have wars. We're going to have the strife in the world that we have. And I have found a deep sense of empathy and sympathy for a girl that is married in the Mormon Church. Now, she's supposed to be absolutely chaste by the time she gets to a temple wedding. Well, now think about it. Here you've got girls that are sexually mature, around 12, 13 years old, and most of them are getting married at 19, 20. And so for all of those years, 8 or 9 years, they're sexually ready, but they're not allowed to do anything. Nothing. Oh my God, if they masturbate, oh my God, the church will think it's next to death. Next to death. And they use that doctrine to just scare the shit out of little girls, and you know, they'll probably show them pictures in Africa of female circumcisions to scare them straight. But be that as it may, you can't take a boy or a girl who goes through their entire puberty period as virgins, and then they get married in the temple, and then now she's married. And I guess she's supposed to be a little sex pot. She doesn't know anything about her body. She doesn't know anything about his body. She has no idea about relationships and how sex intertwines in marriage, what the boundaries are, what she can do, what she doesn't want to do. She has no idea. And so then the boy goes, well, you know, I married a stupid person. She didn't know anything about sex. And the truth of the matter is, and my truth of the matter is, that 2 or 3 years you've got to be married before you really know each other and can be excellent sexual partners. Well, here's the girl that in one night has to switch from fear, 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 intimidation about her vagina, and then suddenly tonight, you know, her vagina is wide open for everything and anything. There's no transition, there's no training, there's no education, there's no sympathy, no understanding, and no transition into being a married woman. And so she really becomes, I'm sure, confused and trying to please her husband, and she doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to tell her, and there's can be some rough years there right away. Well, within a year or two, now Mr. Baby or Mrs. Baby shows up. Now you've got an entirely different problem. Here you've got a young girl, and you know, she's been faithful and true to all of this religious crap, and now she finds herself pregnant. Well, now, who's going to help her there? Hopefully she has a mom. Hopefully she has somebody that's educated and can help her through a pregnancy. And now she's got a 22-year-old man that doesn't know anything about babies, doesn't know anything about fatherhood, and certainly doesn't know what the hell's going on with her body with a human being inside of it. So suddenly, you know, the sexual thing just falls kind of to the back, and she may not feel like this and that, and now he feels, well, he's betrayed, and now something has come between them, and truly it has come between them. It's a baby. And so the poor girl then has to deliver the baby and then dress it like the little princess or prince that the Mormon Church expects, and she's supposed to jump out of bed, and whether it's a C-section or not, and be 100% herself, and to jump back into bed with her husband and go for it. So, you know, this is a real arduous and a real difficult and a real unfair system. The men are not trained in priesthood meeting to be supportive of their wives. All the words are there. You need to support your wife. You need to love your wife. But they don't tell you, get out on your ass and go do those dishes. Go out there and vacuum. Put a couple of loads of laundry in. You know, carry food to her. They don't treat you that way. They don't. So the men don't. And the poor girl just has to depend upon her mom or other women in the church, or she has to be alone and go through this whole ordeal alone. Well, then what happens is the Mormon church believes to a certain degree in some birth control, but not much. They're not as bad as the Catholics. Brigham Young said you should have as many children as you can. Well, most girls, I guess, can have 12 or 16. I think that's an exaggeration that they should have that many. But before you know it, she's pregnant again. Now she's got a baby that is 1.5 or 2 years old and a new one on the way. And now she's got a bottle in one hand, changing the diaper in the other hand, and giving birth to another baby. And now she has to have a stroller that can hold 2 kids in it. And when she goes to church, she has to have 5 bottles. Or if she's breastfeeding, she's never in church. She's always in the bathroom or out in the foyer. And she's trying to feed these 2 kids. And the little one is screaming and yelling and throwing hymn books down the aisle. And she's got one in her arm. Boy, that sounds like it's fun. That sounds great to be a Mormon woman, doesn't it? I've seen it 1,000 times. I've seen it 1,000 times. And by the time this process is over, you know, she's pushed well into her 30s, maybe 32, 33. She's got 4 little kids. Maybe 1 or 2 are in school now. And she's still got 2 or 3 at home. And suddenly her husband can't support all of those people. So now she's expected to work full-time and to care for those children full-time. And oh, by the way, she has to clean the house full-time. Man, that's a curse. It's a curse to have a vagina. I mean, there's no help, there's no empathy, there's no understanding, there's no support. It's just, hey, you're the girl, you just do the whole thing. So by then, her body, you know, boobs are hanging down, her stomach's hanging out, she's got too much junk in the trunk. She's not attractive anymore. Her garments are size 99999, and this cute little BYU cheerleader that was married, her body by 33 or 35 is destroyed. She looks like, you know, she's 50 or 60 years old. And there's some bitterness. There's some bitterness there, and the mothers try to console each other and realize, you know, they got a fat ass now. Where'd that come from? Well, there's 5 kids right there. And they're in the kitchen constantly trying to feed all those kids and wash all those dishes, and the washing machine is going 24/7. I mean, I've been there. I've lived it. I've seen it. And I just want to number one, compliment the women who have survived that terrible system, and to encourage the younger ones to go, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I just want 1 or 2 kids. Whoa, maybe I don't want to be fat and ugly. Maybe, you know, you should clean the house a little bit and help me out. Maybe you should watch the children now and then. Maybe I should be able to go out with my girlfriends. You know, the Mormon church, watch their lips. They will tell you that, oh, all women can do that. They have their free agency. What woman do you know that's going to leave 3 little kids under 5 in a living room with no supervision while they go to a movie with their girlfriends? I'm telling you, and I'm telling you over and over again, don't listen to their words. Watch their actions. Go to a sacrament meeting. Go to a sacrament meeting with the Mormon church, and you're going to see exactly what I'm saying. These poor young girls and these middle-aged girls have a baby on each arm, one running down the aisle, 2 throwing crap, and she's trying to calm them, and then she's trying to teach a lesson. This is a road to mental illness. It's a road to depression. It's a road to suicide. Utah has the highest rate of prescription drug addiction in the United States of America. If the Mormons are so happy and the females are so happy, why are they all on drugs? Why are they all on drugs? Don't listen to their words. Watch what they do. Utah is 2nd or 3rd in obesity, just under Georgia and Mississippi and some of those places where there's a lot of southern food eaten that is fat. Why are the women so fat? Why are there so many of them on drugs? Why are so many of them unhappy? But they won't tell you they're unhappy because the cult has trained them to smile happy, 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 and we call them Molly Mormons. Molly Mormons never complain. They screw like a bunny. They have 18 kids. They make every meal. They keep the house perfect. They clean the car. And they run to soccer practice and piano practice and volleyball practice 6 times a week. And they never sleep. And they're doing the laundry and the folding and the cleaning and mowing the lawn sometimes and actually shoveling the snow. Boy, it's great to have a vagina in the Mormon church. It's great for the men. For the men. But what about the poor girls? And what about the daughters that are raised by Mormons that are coming into that cult and their expectations? How many girls go to BYU? It's about 50-50 for the boys. How many girls graduate from BYU? 10%? 15%? Because the Mormon church puts them there, because that's where the missionaries are, and they just came back from their missions and they want to screw. They're done with this whole thing of not having any sex. They marry the first girl that comes along, gets her pregnant, she has to drop out of school, and now she's a mommy. He graduates from school, and he's happy as a lark because at 35 or 40, when she's fat ass and ugly, he can divorce her ass and she doesn't have an education. She can't get a job. She gave up her education to have those babies for him. And he doesn't stick with her. He dumps her like a hot potato. And then he goes to the young single dances and picks up somebody 20 years younger. So it's not a fair system, to say the least. Could it ever be fair? I think it could be very close to fair. Certainly the roles and the genders of the sexes are different. And women will always be burdened with the babies and breastfeeding and those kinds of things. But the other things are fixable. The attitudes and the respect and the dignity and the freedom and the opportunity to be educated and to be with their girlfriends and to be free agents. The Mormon church, watch their lips. They'll say, oh, everyone has free agency. That's the biggest lie in the world. No one in the Mormon church has free agency, but the women have less free agency than anybody else in the church. And so I feel sorry for the little girls and the young women and even the old women who have gone through this process with dignity and a smile and trying to be the best mothers that they can, and I think being abused. I think being abused by the Mormon church, the Mormon elders, the Mormon priesthood, the Mormon penises, I don't care what you call it, they're not treated fairly and they're not treated equally. And I'm a man and I can see it from my eyes. Go talk to a Mormon girl. See what she says. Thanks.